A man stands in the rain, eyes fixed on a grave. His voice cracks as he whispers a final goodbye. He buried her memory, and with it, part of himself. A glowing hand gently touches his shoulder. He spins, weapon drawn, then freezes. She, softly, calmly, "Miss me?" She came back from the dead. But what she brought with her could burn the stars themselves. Their hands clasp in the chaos. Her voice returns, steady and fierce. This time we finish what we started. If you are new here, then please subscribe this channel and show thumbs up by liking the video. Let's move toward wonderful story. Rain fell in slow sheets across the violet skies of Vacan, tapping gently on the metal shoulder plates of Thomas Hale's uniform. The air smelled of ash and ozone, reminders of the battle that had scorched the hills just 3 weeks ago. He stood alone on a grassy ridge overlooking the quiet alien city, its spires catching the fading light like broken glass. At his feet stood a simple stone marker, worn and unassuming, carved in a language he didn't understand. But he didn't need translation. He knew what it said. It marked the end of a life that had once meant everything to him. Tomas knelt, brushing his fingers over the smooth stone. "They said you were gone," he whispered, voice thick. "They told me you didn't make it, that you saved us all and the mountain took you with it." His breath fogged in the cool air. He looked up at the city where people were rebuilding, unaware of the ghost still walking in his memory. He could see it all again. The last stand, the fire, the flash of light as Nira Valen disappeared beneath the collapsing ridge. No remains had ever been recovered, just silence and dust. They told him it was over. She was gone. He'd even believed it. Until today. The silence around him was interrupted by the softest sound. Not wind, not rain, but the faint whisper of footsteps on wet grass. He turned slowly, not expecting anything, not even hope. But behind him stood a figure, familiar and impossible. Her dark eyes, once full of quiet fire, met his. Her skin, a soft copper hue unique to her people, glistened with raindrops. White blonde hair clung to her shoulders, and her voice broke the silence with a gentle smile. "You always had trouble letting go, Thomas." He blinked. She was real, standing just feet from him. "Nira?" he managed to say, though it sounded more like a breath than a word. "In the flesh," she replied, stepping closer. "Well, mostly," he stared, unable to speak, unable to move. His body recognized her before his mind could catch up. Her posture, her voice, even the tilt of her head, it was all her. But there were differences too. A new scar along her jaw. A flicker of something guarded behind her eyes. "I saw you fall," he finally said, standing slowly. "I watched. That ridge collapse, you couldn't have survived that." "Emergency evac tech," she explained simply. "Experimental. The kind no one talks about in mission briefings. I was knocked out during the jump, spent 2 weeks in a medical lab while they evaluated me. By the time I was conscious, you were gone." He took a hesitant step forward, rain dripping from his brow. "Why didn't you contact me? Why let me think you were dead?" "I tried," she said, her voice lowering. "But the council kept me under strict observation. They said it was for my safety, but I think it was something else." Thomas looked down at his hands. They were shaking slightly, not from fear, but from the tidal wave of emotions pressing against his ribs. Grief, shock, and now the wild, irrational joy of seeing her again. "I'm not the same," Nira added quietly. "Whatever they did to keep me alive changed things. I'm still me, but different." He searched her face, looking for something, anything that would make this make sense. But all he saw was the person he had trusted with his life, the person he had mourned, the one he had never stopped loving even when she was gone. "I don't care," he said finally. "You're here. That's all that matters." She reached out, and he let her hand rest against his chest, where his heart still raced. It was warm, steady and real. "We don't have much time," she said. "There are things I need to tell you, things I can't say here." Thomas nodded. He didn't ask questions. Not yet. Whatever this was, it had pulled them both into something larger than grief. Larger than love. She turned toward a small transport vehicle parked at the edge of the field, and he followed her without hesitation. As they drove into the storm-lit city, Thomas kept glancing at her. Every time he looked, she was still there, still alive, still Nira. He didn't know what was waiting for them ahead, didn't know what secrets she carried or what the council had done to her. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He had said goodbye once. He wouldn't lose her again. The city of Vequin slid past the windows of the transport, its glowing towers softened by the steady rain. Thomas sat beside Nira in silence, still trying to believe what his eyes were telling him. She was alive. He had touched her hand, heard her voice, seen the faint scar on her face where none had been before. But something inside him wouldn't rest. Not yet. Nira was the same. But not quite. She guided the vehicle through a network of narrow skyways until they reached a quiet residential sector. The building they entered looked normal from the outside. Clean lines, silver edges, a place that wouldn't raise suspicion. But the moment they stepped through the door, Thomas knew it wasn't just an apartment. The walls were reinforced, the windows tinted against surveillance. This was a safe house. Nira didn't speak as she activated the security locks and checked the scanner by the door. Thomas remained by the window, watching the rain streak down the glass. He didn't need to ask how she'd found this place. She had always planned ahead, always had an exit strategy. It was one of the reasons they'd worked so well together during the war. "Do you want a drink?" she asked finally, her voice soft. "Sure," he said, not turning from the window. "Something strong?" She poured 2 glasses of amber liquid and handed one to him. Their fingers brushed, and for a second he saw a flicker of hesitation in her eyes, like she was afraid of how he might react to what she had to say next. "I need to explain everything," she said. "But I need you to listen first. Really listen, before you react." Thomas nodded. He didn't trust his voice enough to speak. "I was pulled from the wreckage," she began, "barely alive. My vitals were fading. They told me I'd never make it unless they tried something different. A program, not official but funded by someone high up. They used alien tech, Kellery enhancements. At first I was grateful. I could breathe again, move without pain, but it didn't stop there." She set her glass down and rubbed her hands together, as if warming them from something cold. "They didn't just save me, they upgraded me. Strength, speed, reflexes, it's all improved. But the implant they used, it connects to something bigger. Something I can't shut off. I think it's still sending data back to them, maybe even changing how I think." Thomas turned to face her. "You think they're controlling you?" "I don't know," she said. "But sometimes I get urges I don't recognize, reactions that don't feel like mine. It's like someone else is sitting behind the wheel with me." He stared at her, the woman he'd trusted with his life. And yet, he could see now that she wasn't just fighting enemies. She was fighting herself. "Why tell me this?" he asked. "Why not go back to them, ask for help?" "Because I don't trust them anymore," she said flatly. "And because you're the only one I do trust." Before he could answer, a soft chime sounded through the room. Nira froze. She moved to the wall panel and tapped a small screen. Her face paled. "They found us." Thomas was already reaching for his sidearm. "Who?" "Not the enemy," she said grimly. "Worse, our own." The words hit him harder than he expected. She moved with quiet precision, checking her weapon, strapping on gear from a hidden panel. "They're not here to talk, Thomas. They'll either bring me back in chains or leave me dead. I'm a risk, now." As the windows darkened and the lights shifted to red, Thomas took up position by the door. He didn't ask why she was suddenly marked as a threat. He didn't need to. He knew how these things worked. When something powerful couldn't be controlled, it became dangerous. The first blast hit the outer wall with a dull thud. Then came the sound of boots, quick and silent. The strike team was trained, fast, and disciplined. Thomas met the first operative with a burst from his pulse sidearm, dropping him before he could react. Nira darted across the room with an agility that didn't seem real, disarming 2 soldiers in less than a second. Her movements were sharp, almost inhuman, her strikes surgical. But Thomas wasn't watching the fight. He was watching her. Watching how she moved, how she didn't hesitate, how her eyes didn't blink as she disabled a third attacker with brutal efficiency. It wasn't her. Not fully. When the room fell silent again, 3 figures lay unconscious. Nira stood over one of them, breathing hard. Her hand hovered near his neck. "We need answers," she said. Thomas stepped forward, keeping his tone low. "And we will get them. But right now, we need to go." Nira nodded, tension visible in her posture. Together, they vanished into the night, the city closing behind them like a door, leaving behind only broken glass and unanswered questions. The Gray Market District was a place where rules bent, records vanished, and names were traded like currency. Hidden beneath the polished surface of Vequin's diplomatic sector, it buzzed with the quiet hum of deals no one dared document. Tomas and Nira moved quickly through the maze of flickering signs and steam-filled alleys, faces down, weapons hidden beneath coats that blended in with the damp crowd. Every step brought them closer to a decision they both feared and knew was necessary. They stopped in front of a rusted door with no markings. Nira gave 3 sharp knocks, then 1 slow one. A moment later, a panel slid open, revealing a pair of sharp eyes and a weathered face. After a tense second, the door creaked open and a soft voice said, "You're late." Dr. Marin Relo was not a friendly woman, but she was one of the best off-the-record medics in Vequin. Once a respected neural scientist, she had vanished from the official records after refusing to work on a government enhancement project. Now, she patched up broken operatives and extracted things most doctors wouldn't dare touch. Nira sat down, heavily on the exam table while Thomas stayed near the door, watching every shadow. "So," Marin said, studying Nira with professional curiosity. "Project Torchlight. I didn't think anyone survived." "I didn't," Nira answered dryly. "Not as I was." Marin scanned her with a small device, frowning. "You've got a modified implant embedded near your spinal cord. It's not just monitoring you, it's adjusting your brain chemistry. That's why you're feeling off. Can you remove it?" Thomas asked. Marin didn't answer right away. She pulled up a 3D scan, showing a twisting coil of tech snaked around Nira's nerves. "If I'm careful, maybe. But it's wired into her autonomic systems. One wrong move and her body shuts down, or worse, triggers a toxin release. I'd rather die free than live like this," Nira said quietly. Tomas stepped closer. "You don't have to choose that." "I already did," she said, looking at him. "The moment I ran from them." Marin sighed. "If we're doing this, we do it now. But once I begin, there's no stopping. You understand?" They both nodded. As Marin prepared her tools, Thomas helped Nira lie back on the table. Her hand found his, fingers gripping tightly. "If I start saying strange things," she whispered, "or if I try to hurt you, I won't let it get that far," he said firmly. She smiled faintly. "That's what I'm afraid of." The moment the inhibitor touched the back of her neck, her body stiffened and her eyes rolled back. Alarms beeped softly, and Marin muttered to herself as she worked, sweat beading on her forehead despite the room's cool air. Thomas watched, helpless, as wires and sparks danced across the instruments. Nira's face was pale, drawn tight with pain even in unconsciousness. Outside, Thomas had rigged proximity sensors. Now they blinked red. "We have company," he said sharply. Marin didn't look up. "Buy me 20 minutes. Thomas grabbed his weapon and slipped out the side door, moving into the shadows. Down the alley, a group of figures in sleek black armor moved in silence. No markings, no words. Just the slow, steady approach of people who had done this before. He didn't wait. A sharp shot from his pulse pistol lit up the alley, and chaos followed. The soldiers spread out, returning fire, with precision. Thomas ducked behind a container, breath heavy, mind racing. They weren't here to talk. They were here to take Nira, dead or alive. Back inside, Nira's heart rate spiked, her body jerking as Marin reached the final connection. Almost there, she muttered. Tomas threw a small shock charge, stunning 2 soldiers and forcing the others to fall back. He knew it wouldn't hold them for long. When he re-entered the clinic, he was bleeding from a graze on his arm. Marin had just removed the implant, now sealed in a case that pulsed faintly with energy. She's stable, Marin said, but the implant, it's more than a tracker. It's a data drive, high-level encrypted intel. Thomas stared at the device. Can we access it? Maybe, Marin replied, but it's dangerous. This tech is far beyond anything I've seen. Nira stirred, eyes fluttering open. She looked at Thomas, confused for a moment, then clear. It's out? She asked. He nodded, kneeling beside her. You're free. She exhaled shakily, like someone waking from a long nightmare, but even as relief settled over them, the sound of boots echoed down the hall. They're still coming, Tomas said. Nira sat up slowly, weaker than he'd ever seen her, but her gaze was steady. Then let's not be here when they arrive. Together, they escaped through a back exit Marin showed them. The rain had started again, soft and steady. Behind them, the clinic disappeared into the night. Nira leaned on Thomas as they walked, her steps uncertain but her eyes forward. The cost had been high, but for the first time since the war, she felt like herself again. And for both of them, that was the only truth that mattered. The stars beyond the window stretched in silence, streaking into lines as the small stealth shuttle jumped to hyperspace. Inside, the cabin lights dimmed, casting soft shadows across Thomas's face as he watched Nira sleep in the co-pilot seat. She looked peaceful now, though he knew her body still fought the aftershocks of what had been done to her. The implant was gone. The control, the interference, the nightmares. It was finally over. But what came next was something no one could prepare for. Their mission wasn't finished. In many ways, it had only just begun. Thomas turned his attention to the data pad in his hand. It displayed the decrypted files from Nira's removed implant, information even the Council hadn't expected. What they had discovered was worse than anyone had feared. The Kelnari, the enemy behind the previous war, had built something, a weapon that could destabilize stars, turning them into raging firestorms that would wipe out entire systems. They planned to test it on Varus Prime, a colony home to millions, in less than 5 days. When Nira woke, her eyes met his with clarity. The glow was softer now, no longer flickering with interference, just quiet and steady. We have to stop them, she said before he could speak. He nodded, already planning. They returned to a temporary base in orbit around Vequin, where a contact from the Resistance helped provide them with what little gear they needed. There would be no squad, no backup, just the 2 of them, a shuttle, and their combined knowledge of Kelnari systems. It felt almost laughable, going up against an Empire's secret weapon with little more than a plan and their stubborn determination. But then again, Thomas thought, that was how most of their victories had started, small and impossible. The shuttle dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the uncharted star system. The weapon wasn't on a planet, but anchored to an artificial platform orbiting a burning red sun. From a distance, it looked like a spiderweb made of steel, with huge metal arms reaching into the sun's corona, harvesting its energy and storing it in a glowing core the size of a transport ship. The readings made one thing clear. Once the weapon activated, there would be no stopping it. As they suited up, Thomas turned to Nira, who was adjusting her visor. You sure you're ready? I'm not, she said honestly. But I'm going anyway. That was enough. They entered, the station through a maintenance shaft on the far side of the structure. It was hot inside, the walls pulsing with heat from the nearby star. Their suits would only protect them for a short time. They moved quickly, Nira guiding them through access tunnels, while Thomas placed charges near the cooling systems. If they couldn't shut the weapon down manually, they would have to destroy it. Along the way, they passed empty corridors and dimly lit chambers that felt strangely quiet. Then Nira spotted something on her scanner. Another team. Human signals. It wasn't a coincidence. The Council had sent their own operatives, probably enhanced ones like she once was. But they were already too late. The radiation from the weapons core made the area deadly to anyone with implants. Only Nira, now fully herself again, could move freely. They reached the central chamber, a round platform bathed in orange light from the sun beyond. The control systems were active, counting. Down to test initiation, Thomas started placing the final explosives while Nira interfaced with the terminal, her fingers moving swiftly over the alien console. "It's locked," she said, "but I can override it." Outside the control room, alarms began to blare. Someone knew they were there. A group of Kelnari guards stormed the platform, weapons drawn. Thomas stood between them and Nira, pulse rifle ready. "Just a little longer," she called out. He fought with precision, drawing from every mission, every battle they'd shared. But the enemy was strong, and time was running out. "I've done it," Nira shouted. "System override. It's shutting down." She turned just as a guard rushed her. Thomas acted on instinct, intercepting the blow and disarming the attacker, but not before a blast from a pulse weapon caught him across the side. He collapsed to the floor, gasping. Nira knelt beside him, cradling his head. "Thomas, stay with me." He grinned, blood on his lips. "Did we win?" "We stopped it," she said, brushing his hair back. "You did it." He coughed, then laughed. "We did it." She helped him to his feet. Together, limping and bruised, they made their way back to the shuttle. The weapon behind them sparked and failed, its deadly glow extinguished. Varus Prime was safe. Back in orbit, they watched the star return to its quiet burn. The mission was complete. Days later, they stood once again near the memorial field in Vequen. This time not to say goodbye, but to mark a new beginning. Nira held Thomas's hand and placed the small plaque beside the old monument. "To all the chances we almost missed," it read. As they walked away, the sky clear and soft above them, Thomas turned to her. "You know," he said, "we never got to finish that conversation. The one before the fight." Nira smiled. "You mean the one where I tell you I'm pregnant?" He stopped in his tracks, eyes wide. "I wasn't sure," she said softly. "But now I am." Thomas blinked, then let out a breathless laugh. "A child." She nodded, tears forming in her eyes. "A new start. For all of us." And beneath the ashes of war and fear, a spark had taken root. A spark that promised not just survival, but life.